Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so happy to see you all here. It's amazing how a year can go so fast. I mean, a year ago, we're sitting here talking about oil prices and employment, but today we talk a little bit about a few different things. So just to give you a heads up on what we'll talk about. Oh, wait, I went back. I gotta go forward. So the first thing I'll do is my presentation is in three parts. I'll first talk about the demographics in Kern County. Next, I'll talk about current economic trends, and I'll talk about a research paper that we've been talking about over the years that we've been presenting at economic conferences, and it touches on Kern County, very interesting topic, has received a lot of feedback and is currently under review. So that'll be the second topic I'll talk about. And then the third thing is I'll look at current trends nationwide. There are a lot of things that are happening across the country. So there'll be a few graphs here and there, but I just hope that you guys take at least one thing home, okay? Just pick whatever you want, just go home at least, and you'll have a story to tell. So the first slide, as always, is we talk a little bit about demographics. We talk about population, and one thing you'll notice is that our population is still, we're still a little bit over below 900,000 people, but our population has been growing faster than the previous years. In 2015-16, we grew 0.64. 16-17, we grew 1.2%, which was higher than California and higher in the nation, growing quite fast. Population-wise, gender is about 51%, and then at the end, you'll see a graph that shows you composition in terms of Hispanic, white, black, and one thing you'll notice is that 52% of the population is Hispanic. If you take 100 people, maybe this group right here, at least 50% of them will be Hispanic, and 34% will be white, and 6% will be black. Now, if you flip the story, if this was now California, this was Kern. If this was California, the numbers change a little bit. The percentage of Hispanic and white is about 38%, split evenly. And then the population of Asian is about 3 times the number in Bakersfield. So it's 5.2 in Kern County, but 15% in California. Unemployment, how are we doing in terms of unemployment? That's a good graph. That graph looks good because it's going down. That's a good thing, right? Unemployment rate is going down, and it's at 9.3% as of January. Still not the lowest we've ever had. The lowest we've had in Kern County is about 7.5, which was in 2006. So in terms of unemployment rate, we're going, unemployment is going down, and then the median age is 31.3, which means half the population is over 31 years, and the other half is below 31 years. And the graph right next to it shows the same, right? 48% of the population in Kern County is below the age of 29. So let's talk a little bit about our research project. Very interesting topic here. And I'll throw in some numbers, and then I'll let you guys think a little bit about this. So the two graphs there show us oil production in Kern County. As of 2016, Kern County produced 144 million barrels of oil. The next largest county was Los Angeles, which was 24 million barrels. And with 144, that means, that number translates to 75% of the oil we produce in California. That's a lot. That's a lot, ladies and gentlemen. So we produce all this oil, but let's look at some other things like poverty rates and education attainment. Two figures there. The figure on the left shows poverty rates, and the darker it is, the higher the poverty rate. And one thing you'll notice is that right in the center, right in the Central Valley, there's a cluster of darker counties. So the poverty rate in Kern County is a little bit higher, right? Kern County and a few other surrounding counties is a little bit higher. And then the graph on the right shows education attainment, and you'll see that the lighter it is, the less the education attainment or the graduation rate. So that's an interesting thing that's happening. Here we have high production of oil, high production of these natural resources, but then if you look at our education attainment and poverty rates, it's a bit inverse. Which brings us to the issue or a topic that we call the resource curse, right? We tend to ask questions like the resource curse. When people hear resource curse, they're like, oh my God, is that a curse? Curse? The resource curse is a phenomenon where natural resources, abundance of natural resources, tend to impede economic growth in countries. Ladies and gentlemen, this is something that's happened across the world, right? And when we talk about natural resources, we're talking about minerals, we're talking about materials, we're talking about forests, we're talking about fertile land, water, right? So the more abundant you have in terms of natural resources, then economic growth tends to have an inverse relationship in terms of growth. And that's a widely studied topic. So How does that actually happen? It's not that you have a lot of natural resources, then all of a sudden economic growth is affected. There are transmission channels in between. Abundance of natural resources, which are meant to probably go into the economy, collect, the government collects taxes and invest that in infrastructure, or high income. If people have a high income levels, then they can invest in education and healthcare and all these other things. But those things tend not to happen. And why? Because we have 7 things which we call transmission channels through which the resource curse occurs. Those transmission channels are the ones that I have shown there. So on the left side, you'll see resource abundance. Then you have the transmission channels, and then at the end, you have the resource curse. So when people do research, if they pick a country, for example, if they decide to pick Nigeria, or if they decide to pick Saudi Arabia, or Angola, or they decide to pick the Appalachian region, which produces a lot of coal, then you would be studying one of those things. It actually started with the Dutch disease, Netherlands. So things like the Dutch disease, volatile commodity prices, economic mismanagement, institutions, corruption, and then last at the bottom you have neglect of education, and that one is red. Okay? So by studying one of those areas and studying how that affects the economic development of a country, then you can study whether the resource curse has occurred or not. Now, people will say, well, that doesn't really happen, or maybe, where does this actually happen? So I put a map here, and that shows all the countries, not all of them actually. I couldn't fit them there. And don't try and spend time trying to see where those arrows are going, because this graph was a little bit tricky to put together. But all I'm saying is that those are countries which have been suspected or have gone through the resource curse and done away with it, or are still trying to work their way through it. The countries in blue show countries that have actually evaded the resource curse. The ones in white are the ones under study. And then you'll see Kern County, the yellow little blob there, right? And the funny thing is, every time we go to conferences and we talk about this, people ask, how come you guys have never talked about Kern County? There's a paucity of studies. There are not very many studies that look at Kern County. Appalachia has received a lot of attention, right? Produced a lot of coal. Alberta, up in the north. So we decided, you know what, let's focus on this county and let's see what's going on. Now, it's just one county, but let's investigate this, and let's actually see whether education is affected by abundance of resources. So we decided to look, let's see who else has worked on this, or let's see what other studies have worked on this. And you'll find that this is something that has been done by many scholars. The first study that was done within 86 countries found that school enrollment was inversely related to abundance of natural resources. Then you have a study by Black et al., which was looking at the Appalachian region, and these guys looked at this study since the 70s. You'll notice that high school dropouts in the 70s in Appalachia earned more than high school graduates. So the dropout rates at the time in Appalachia, now Appalachia has 420 counties, so that's a big stretch of land, from New York all the way down to Tennessee. Found that a lot of people, high school dropout rates were higher. In Alberta, we have the same story. Texas is also very interesting. A couple of folks said and looked at the advent of fracking. Hydraulic fracking, which has been taking part in the Marcellus Shale region, which is in the eastern part of the country, has experienced a lot of dropout rates. In fact, they say resource booms reduced completion rates. In Texas, the story was a little bit interesting. The oil industry actually pulled some students out of class, but then reinvested some money into the education. So they had really good schools, high quality education, high quality teachers, but the dropout rates were quite a little bit higher. So we decided, okay, you know what, let's do this. Let's test this and look at a few things. Now, what we decided was we're going to look at Kern County, and we're going to compare what's happening in Kern County with Fresno, Santa Barbara, Ventura. Let's look at all these oil producing counties, and also let's talk about ag. Because when you talk about resources, agriculture is one of them, and oil is also another one. So we did that. That graph right there shows you the relationship between oil production, and on the y-axis you have poverty. What you want to see, Kern County, you'll notice, is out there. We produce a lot of oil, but that dot should be at the bottom. Our poverty rates should be at the bottom in comparison to the other counties that we have on the graph. Then we say, let's look at agriculture. Same type of situation, but we're out there with Fresno. So we said, okay, you know what, this is probably something we should study, and our main objective, do past and present values of resource abundance help explain education attainment at the college level in Kern County and 5 other counties, okay? So just to cut the whole, I didn't put any econometrics here, no time series models, we just went straight to the results, and we found that at least through the education channel, or through the education transmission channel, there's no evidence of the resource curse in Kern County. Okay, so there was no evidence. In other counties, we found that, there could be some relationship between 5 or 3 years ago of resource abundance and on education. So having said that, we said, okay, you know what, we're lucky. We have oil, we have ag in Kern County. We need to diversify. We need to think a little bit outside the box, and let's see what industries we can think of. So I put a slide together here and said, let's look at employment trends in Kern County and employment trends in California, and let's see which sectors have gained the most jobs. Kern County, in terms of employment, you'll see that the clothing industries gained close to 2,000 jobs. The change is 95%. The state and government education teachers went up. City education as well, you can see that they employed more. But California's story is quite interesting. Look at California. Vehicle manufacturing went from 4,600 to 15,200. That's 230% change. Why do you guys think that happened? You can whisper that to your friend. It starts with T and ends with SLA, Tesla, right? Tesla. Look at data processing and hosting services. All these things, the number of cars, the number of people working in this industry has shot up, gone up. And although it has gone up, it's not as high, or it's not higher than what's going on in Detroit. So another interesting statistic came to mind. Employment in breweries increased by 135% between 2010 and 2016. That's a statistic that was put out by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Big number. In fact, they said that breweries accounted for half the jobs gained in the beverage and manufacturing industry. Now, just to ask you guys, when you think of Napa, when you think of Sonoma, when you think of Paso Robles, what comes to mind? Right? And your taste buds start tingling. Tingly, 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 right? That's something. Now, when you think of San Diego, when you think of Denver, when you think of San Jose, what comes to mind? I don't say it too loudly, because I asked a couple of people and they're like, oh, the marijuana industry. I said, no. Those cities are the cities which have the largest number of breweries in the country. Look at this. Let's talk about breweries for a while. The number of craft breweries in 2016 was up. We had about 6,000 breweries. In 1985, we only had 37 breweries in the country. Now we have 6,000. Ladies and gentlemen, California leads. We have about 623 breweries in California, and San Diego alone has 250 breweries. That's a large number. People travel to go see these things, right? The economic impact is also very large. In California, the economic $7.4 billion is what the craft brewing industry contributes to the economy. And nationwide, we're talking about $67 billion. Now, this is something that's happened over a very short time, right? Let's look at something else. Let's look at employment. The employment numbers also went up. You can see we started off at 25,000 just about 4 or 5 years ago, and now we're at 58,000. Big thing. Craft breweries. I called the CBC office in Kern County a few days ago. They said in Kern County we have 13 breweries, but in Bakersfield we have 5. Okay? Now, these are things which are changing. They're growing. And in terms of employment, California also leads in employment. California and Colorado. Those are 2 big areas where we have a lot of employment related to breweries. Now, let me ask you, ladies and gentlemen, a question. Who do you think is driving this industry? Millennials. Yeah, someone said that millennials. There's 75 million millennials. 75 million millennials in the country. Amanda, 75. Everyone seems to be picking on you. She's texting, but 75 million millennials drive this. Look at this. Millennials, let me tell you one thing about millennials. Millennials are confident, they're open to change, they are upbeat, and they're authentic, right? This is a group which thinks a little bit differently. 94% of millennials tried a new beer in the past month. So these are folks who are open to change. They like to try something new. So this month, new beer. Next month, new beer. Next month, new beer. So this is something that's driving this group. In fact, we have what we call beercations now, right? The map on the top right shows beercation. It's a map of the US, and my cousin is on who told me about this thing. He said, you know what? He bought all these apparatus. He's brewing all this stuff in his house, and it's a hobby. It's a hobby which is now making entrepreneurs out of it. And we don't need a Tesla. You don't need a big company, but it's something that is driven by very few individuals. The map on the bottom left shows this map that they put out that says that if those are the 10 best breweries to see the solar eclipse. So if you were to do a road trip, those are the places you want to hit, right? I doubt they'll be able to see what's going on by the time they get to the 10th one, but I don't know. These are interesting human beings. Then lastly, in as much as we talk about the tech industry, there are very many apps as well which are used in the brewery industry. Some of these, there's an app that will tell you how to make beer. There's an app that will tell you, ooh, there are 5 or 2 new breweries that showed up within 5 miles of your radius. There's an app that will connect you to your latest or to the newest brewer and deliver beer right to your doorstep within 15 minutes. There are apps. I think I have one. It's like a Facebook, and it's called Untap, and you keep in touch with friends, and it tells you, oh, there's something new. Maybe you move into a new city, and it tells you there's this is the type of taste buds that you have, and this is the drink that you would prefer, and this is where you need to go. So it's a word of mouth thing, but it's a technology. People are also intertwined through this. So ladies and gentlemen, a lot of things are happening in this industry. It's growing very fast, and I think even if you look at the data, they're talking about exports. Exports are so high. A lot of beer is being exported to Canada. They're making, I think last year the revenue was about $121 million in this industry. I don't think I have any other stories. Thank you so much. You guys are wonderful, and I'm glad to have talked to you today. Thank you.